light of the police controversially using kettling at the Black Lives Matter protest, I sat down with a former Met police officer to discuss police protesting tactics.
So I'm Matt Harris. I joined the police in September 2017. I joined the Metropolitan Police and was a dedicated ward officer for Harlesden and then Stonebridge in northwest London. I took a unique way into the police and joined a program called Police Now, which is accelerated training where after 6 weeks you do all the police exams and all the police training. So my training was condensed into 6 weeks. As part of that, there were 5 days training, which were more the physical aspect of policing. So that'd be things like handcuffing people, self-defense. And as part of that, there would be training on large-scale events, but it would touch on it in the expectation that I wouldn't be deployed to them really ever. It would only be in exceptional circumstances. The reason being is that if I wanted to do sort of riot training, then there's a separate 2-day training that police go through to do that, which you would do later on in your career. So what we learnt was maybe an afternoon's worth, where we literally just went outside and went through general things that might happen. For example, all line up together and you'd have a sergeant or an inspector behind you shouting, open up the gate or close the gate, and just very general things like that. That was as far as it went, I would say, for big events. A lot of things after I came out of training that I wouldn't think I could definitely go and deal with that now, I think a lot of it is you learn on the job and you just learn by doing stuff with other police officers who have done it before. I don't think I would have been prepared now to deal with a riot, but it's one of those things you don't know until you actually do it, until you're surrounded by other people who have done it before, and whether they direct you to do the right thing or not. So I've been at a football match, I've been kettled, and my opinion at the time was that it was treating people like animals, which meant that they behaved like animals. So this was at a football game and we were being kettled at the ground, and it was very, very hostile, and people throwing coins at us and people my side of the cordon throwing coins at people outside. And it was, it wasn't a nice atmosphere to be in. And I'm not sure, again, it's so tricky because I guess being a police officer, I understand the other side, whereas if the police don't act, what might happen because of it. So at least the violence is controlled in a way that it's not going to get completely out of hand if people are kettled and you're keeping people away from each other. But I completely understand the other side, that it does cause people to get riled up even more. My understanding is that if the police officer could demonstrate that the individual being amongst that crowd is causing antisocial behaviour, then they could demand their name and address under Section 50, as long as they can demonstrate that individual is causing antisocial behaviour. Whether that's been part of a group or individually, then it's up to the police officer to justify. So if the police officer did go through and arrest anyone under Section 50, they'd have to write a full statement as to why they did so and why they were acting in an antisocial manner, and then that would be reviewed.
Please take a step back, sir. Please. Thank you very much. Please take a step back. Please take a step back, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay. Because the common phrase in the training I had was, if the trainer would say, am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to do this? It would be if I can justify it, if I can justify it. So it's up to the police officer to justify their actions. So if the police officer is doing something that maybe another police officer doesn't agree with, that doesn't mean the other police officer is right, as long as the police officer who's done the action can justify why they've done it. The 4 points that they said it had to be was proportionate, legal, accountable, and necessary. So as long as you can justify that what you've just done is proportionate, legal, you're accountable to your actions, and it was necessary that you did it, then it's okay. But there's so many instances in the police, if you're a police officer, that you come up against that are unique. So you can't cover every single thing in training. So it's about each police officer having good judgment themselves.